Welcome back to Wisdom Unveiled. We're continuing our deep dive into the conversations with Iranian philosophers from the series Marifat with Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
Yeah.
Quick reminder, these are translated conversations.
Right.
So apologies if some of the details get a little bit lost in translation.
Of course, yeah.
We're picking up with episode 7 today, and it focuses on Saadi of Shiraz.
Saadi. Such a captivating figure.
What is it about him that's so captivating?
Well, centuries later, his work still resonates.
Right.
And I think it's because he had this really unique ability to weave these profound truths into stories that anyone can relate to.
Yeah, it's like he almost understood how to make philosophy accessible.
Exactly.
Even for people who aren't, scholars.
Yeah.
And in this episode, he takes this really interesting approach to love, using a dialogue between a moth and, well, someone trying to give it some helpful advice.
Yes, this is from the Gulistan,
Okay.
a collection of Saadi's poems and stories. And in this specific poem, this advisor is warning the moth about a flame.
Okay.
Classic don't play with fire kind of situation.
Right. But, the moth's reaction is not at all what you'd expect.
Exactly.
It wants to get burned.
Yeah, but instead of heeding that warning, the moth kind of embraces the risk.
Huh.
Even comparing itself to Abraham surviving the fiery furnace.
Oh, wow.
Saying that it would rather be consumed by the flames than live without this intense yearning.
That's where I get a little bit stuck, I think, because it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To choose pain, destruction over safety and comfort.
Right.
What do you think Saadi's trying to get at here?
Well, Saadi was a master of symbolism.
Okay.
So remember, the moth and the flame, they're not just about a literal bug and fire.
Okay.
This is a representation of the soul's yearning for something greater than itself.
Okay.
A yearning for the divine.
So is the moth's attraction to the flame kind of like a metaphor for our own desires and aspirations?
Yeah, you could see it that way. In Sufi interpretations, the moth's flight towards the flame symbolizes this transcendence.
Oh.
The soul's desire to be reunited with God.
Mm-hmm.
And the flame itself represents that divine presence.
Okay.
The source of all light and truth.
So the moth is willing to sacrifice everything then for this ultimate connection,
Yeah.
this union. It makes me wonder if Saadi is suggesting that true love always requires some degree of risk and sacrifice.
That is a really interesting question. And it's one that we will explore further as we kind of delve deeper into Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani's conversation about Saadi's ideas on love.
This reminds me of another image that Saadi uses in his work.
Yeah.
A burning candle.
Yes.
To symbolize love.
Right. In that poem, the candle burns all night.
Right.
And its tears of wax are like a representation of the pain and sacrifice that often comes with profound love.
Right. It's this poignant image of beauty and sorrow all kind of tied together.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like a continuation of the moth metaphor.
Right.
The moth and the candle are consumed by this yearning, even though it involves pain and potential destruction.
Dr. Dinani actually points out that this burning candle can also be seen as a symbol of the human heart itself.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
He's suggesting that our hearts, like the candle, are capable of experiencing the full intensity of love.
Right.
With all of its complexities and the potential for both great joy and deep sorrow.
So are you saying that this capacity for love and for suffering is part of what makes us human?
It's definitely a key theme that emerges from Saadi's work.
Yeah.
And Dr. Dinani explores it further in this episode.
Right.
He and Dr. Larijani have this really fascinating discussion about the very definition of love and whether it's even possible to fully capture it in words.
I struggle with that too.
Right.
Because we all know what love feels like, but to define it,
right.
It almost feels impossible.
They both seem to agree that it's elusive,
Yeah.
a concept we can experience very deeply, but can't necessarily pin down with a perfect definition.
Okay.
But Dr. Dinani suggests that while we may not be able to define love perfectly, we can explore its qualities.
Right.
The things that make it what it is.
That seems like a more manageable approach.
Yeah.
So what are some of those qualities?
Well, one that he focuses on is the element of suffering.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
He proposes that true love, at least in the human experience, is inseparable from suffering.
Wait, suffering?
Yeah.
You're saying that pain is a necessary component of love.
Oh, well,
That seems counterintuitive.
it is a thought-provoking idea,
Yeah.
and I think it's one that a lot of people might initially resist.
Yeah, because we associate love with happiness, right?
Right. But Dr. Dinani makes a compelling case,
Hmm.
drawing a distinction between human love and the kind of love that's attributed to angels.
Oh, okay. What's the difference?
He suggests that angels, being pure spirits, experience a perfect, unchanging love for God, free from the pain, longing, and separation that humans often feel.
So are you saying the human love is, like, flawed then?
It's not about seeing one as better or worse.
Okay.
It's acknowledging that they're different in nature.
Okay.
Human love is intertwined with our embodied experience,
Okay.
which means we experience the world through our senses and emotions.
Right.
And that includes joy, sorrow, and everything in between.
So our capacity for suffering is part of what makes love so complex and nuanced.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Dr. Dinani suggests that this capacity for suffering is actually a gift,
A gift.
something that allows us to experience love in a way that angels can't.
That's a pretty radical idea. I'm curious to hear more about how he supports that.
Yeah. He connects it back to the moth and the candle,
Okay.
both willing to be consumed
Right.
to experience pain,
Uh-huh.
even destruction, because of this intense yearning.
Okay.
He's saying it's this very capacity for suffering that gives human love its depth and complexity.
So instead of seeing suffering as something to avoid, he's saying it enhances our experience of love.
Exactly.
Huh.
Almost like saying that the potential for heartbreak makes the joy of love that much more profound.
I'm thinking about those classic love stories like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
There's so much suffering woven into those narratives.
Right.
Maybe that's part of what makes them so powerful.
It's like the contrast between light and shadow.
Yeah.
You can't fully appreciate one without the other.
But if suffering is inherent in love, does that mean we're destined for heartache and disappointment?
Well, Saadi doesn't shy away from the reality of pain and loss in relationships,
Right.
but he also offers guidance on how to navigate these challenges without becoming overwhelmed by them.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of cultivating inner strength, resilience.
So it's not about avoiding suffering, but learning to face it
Right.
with grace, courage.
And he stresses the importance of self-awareness,
Okay.
discipline,
Uh-huh.
cultivating a sense of inner peace. He often uses this analogy of the mind being like a wild horse
Oh, I love
that
that.
needs to be tamed.
Yeah, our thoughts and emotions, they can run wild,
Exactly.
pulling us in all these different directions.
And through practices like meditation,
Okay.
contemplation,
Yeah.
focusing on our breath,
Right.
we can begin to tame those wild horses and find stillness.
So it's about creating that space where we can connect with our wisdom,
Yes.
make choices that are aligned with our values, even in the midst of emotional turmoil.
Exactly.
So Saadi is encouraging us to take responsibility for our inner state.
Yes, I think that's a key part of his message.
Okay.
True freedom, for Saadi, comes not from external power or possessions, but from cultivating that inner mastery over our own minds and emotions.
Would you say that this inner freedom is essential for navigating the challenges that come up in relationships?
Absolutely.
Okay.
When we're able to regulate our own emotions, respond to difficult situations with wisdom and compassion, we're less likely to get caught up in reactive patterns. Right. Create unnecessary drama.
But even with the best intentions, conflicts are bound to arise.
Of course.
How does Saadi suggest we approach those?
He places a lot of emphasis on the importance of patience,
Okay.
forgiveness, understanding.
Right.
He reminds us that love is not just a feeling,
Okay.
it's a choice.
Right.
An action.
Uh-huh.
Requires effort, commitment, and a willingness to work through those rough patches that arise.
So it's not about finding the perfect partner or expecting a fairy tale,
No.
but choosing to show up for each other even when it's difficult.
Right.
And to do that well, we need to cultivate those qualities.
Yes.
Patience, forgiveness.
Towards ourselves and the people we love.
You know, this reminds me of what Dr. Dinani said about human love and angelic love.
Yes.
He said the human love is dynamic,
Right.
ever evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of what makes it so challenging?
I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
Our human love is messy and imperfect, but it's also incredibly rich and multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
A tapestry, you could say, woven with threads of joy, sorrow, passion, loss.
It's like that line from Saadi. He who has the cup of love, his sorrow will be little.
Beautiful line.
He's acknowledging that suffering is there, but love has the power to make it bearable.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of difficult times, love can be a source of strength.
Solace, inspiration. How do we cultivate that kind of love?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saadi doesn't offer easy answers.
Right.
But he provides a lot of guidance on how to live a more virtuous life,
Okay.
cultivate meaningful connections, find contentment amidst the chaos.
His teachings are as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
His work speaks to something universal about the human experience.
Right.
Our longing for connection, our capacity for both great joy and deep sorrow, and our desire to find meaning and purpose in our lives.
You know, it's interesting. Saadi didn't just talk about this stuff theoretically. He was known for his travels, experiencing life firsthand.
Mm-hmm. He really lived what he preached,
Yeah.
you could say.
He wasn't just some scholar, in an ivory tower. He was out in the world,
Right.
experiencing the beauty, the harshness of life. And yet, despite all the challenges, there's still this hope,
Mm-hmm.
optimism.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think he maintained that hope?
Well, I think it comes back to that emphasis on inner strength,
Okay.
resilience. He doesn't pretend that pain doesn't exist.
Right.
He acknowledges it pretty directly in his poetry.
Yeah.
But he reminds us, even in those darkest times, there's a glimmer of light,
Right.
a possibility for renewal, transformation.
Like the candle again. Even as it burns, shedding those tears of wax, it still gives light.
It's a beautiful metaphor for the
Oh.
human spirit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even when we're wounded, broken,
Yeah.
we still have that capacity to bring light, warmth into the world.
And maybe it's that capacity for love and compassion, even when faced with suffering, that makes us human.
I think that's a beautiful insight.
Yeah.
It goes back to that idea we were talking about, the
Mhm.
difference between human and angelic love.
Right.
Our human love is imperfect,
Yeah.
ever-changing,
Uh-huh.
but it's also deeply meaningful because it's forged in the crucible of our shared human experience.
Listening to Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani discuss Saadi, his wisdom isn't just about intellectual understanding.
No.
It's about embodying these principles.
Living them.
Yeah.
He's challenging us to walk the talk.
In our relationships, our work, our interactions,
Right.
it's not enough to just read his poetry.
Right.
We have to let his words inspire us to live more consciously, compassionately, courageously.
He's giving us a roadmap for navigating life's complexities with greater wisdom and heart.
And that's a journey worth taking, with all its twists and turns. Well, this has been a really enriching deep dive into the world of Saadi. It's amazing how his words written centuries ago still resonate today.
It's a testament to his genius.
It is.
He captured something so universal.
Yeah.
Our longing for connection, our capacity for both great joy and deep sorrow, and our desire to find meaning and purpose in our lives.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wisdom Unveiled. We hope you found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we have.
And until next time, may you continue to seek wisdom, find moments of beauty and connection in your own journey.